I'm Sergia Louise Anderson, creator of Pole Dance Foundations and the host of the Lupit Pole Instagram interviews. Today we're going to be talking to Lara Michaels. She has been in the business for quite a while, a big competitor in pole, teacher, instructor. We're going to talk about the ups and downs of a pole journey today. Heads up, Lara Michaels will be joining me for the Beginner Pole Dancer Summit as on the guest panel of the Busting Limiting Beliefs panel. That's going to be on March 8th through 11th. Coming up, it's the Beginner Pole Dancer Summit, virtual summit. If you're a beginner pole dancer, it's how to gain confidence and new tools on your journey to become a well-rounded and inspired pole dancer, and the ticket for that is free. So make sure you go check out the link in my bio and you'll be able to see both me and Lara Michaels in that event. So I think I see that she did join here. I'm going to see if I can bring her on now. And let's see. See if you can request. Oh, there we go. Request to join. There we go. Here she comes. I believe that she is jet setting around the world at this moment, so we'll see what she is up to. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Let's see how this connection goes.
Yeah, I was saying that I think you're jet setting right now, right? Are you traveling at the moment?
Yeah, I'm down in Costa Rica right now.
Oh my gosh, how nice. And what's happening down in Costa Rica for you right now?
Just vacation, actually. Yeah, visiting
That's
some friends. So,
wonderful. Yeah, so tell me about your recent procedure that you had. We're going to talk about some of the ups and downs of a pole journey and how life
yeah,
happens.
yeah, life happens. Yeah, so I recently had what's called excision surgery for endometriosis. I was diagnosed with endometriosis in August. I was actually going in to find out about egg freezing, and they were like, guess what? You have a giant cyst. Oh, I think it's like, you still have me there?
Yeah, I
It's
still
a
have
little
you.
slow. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I had a fairly large cyst on one of my ovaries, and so they were like, "This type of cyst is endometriosis. You have endometriosis." So that was like pretty shocking. That said, I've had symptoms for a really long time. This is really common with a lot of women. It's a very common disease, and the symptoms are there, and they're often dismissed, and often your gynecologist doesn't really know that they're associated with it. I didn't have a lot of like I just have had really painful periods for a long time. And based on the MRI and talking with the expert surgeon that I ended up going with, he's like, oh yeah, you've had this for a long time, like 15 years, 16 years. The average amount of time it takes for diagnosis is 7 years, 7 to 10 years for endometriosis. Yeah. So it's pretty crazy.
It's amazing how much goes undiagnosed, and we just think that being in pain, having really painful periods, just buck up and make it happen, move through
Yeah.
life when there's something really, really wrong. So I'm glad that they found that for you.
Yeah, yeah. So it was, I mean, it was a tough decision because I've never had a surgery before, and my first thought was, how is this going to impact my core? How is this going to impact my ability to move? I recently went to school, actually during the beginning of the pandemic, for structural integration. So I'm a structural integration practitioner. So that added to it because now I have all this knowledge about the body, how the body works, and fascia. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to go in, they're going to cut everything. Like, it's really scary to take in. That said, I am so glad I had this procedure done. Based on the challenge with endometriosis is like, you don't really know till you go in how bad it is. And once he got in there, he's like, oh yeah. And I received a video of the surgery and I watched the whole thing because I was like, oh, I want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was pretty incredible to see how like glued together everything was, and like, oh, it's like, oh, no wonder I'm in pain. And it was starting, I believe it was starting to affect my mobility a little bit too. Like there was stuff that again, you know, is it a symptom? Is it related to it? You don't really know. But I felt like stickier and more limited in my pelvis. It can end up really like freezing your pelvis. And that's pretty critical when we look at what we do with pole. So the recovery has been actually, I would say, faster than I expected. You know, I went in really trying to increase my activity level, and I got out of surgery, and part of the process of the surgery is that your abdominal wall gets expanded, so your abs are stretched out. Somebody maybe who's been pregnant might have had a similar experience. um, yeah, and so you get out of surgery, and you're like, I can't sit up. And you kind of have to like sit up sideways and use your arms. And I was like, man, I am glad I'm a pole dancer. Just to like have that storage of strength. And then I think it really helped with the recovery as well. And, I just was at the gym today here in Costa Rica. I was like doing some inverts and things. I was like, oh, okay, everything kind of like it works still. And I think obviously it's like it takes a while because you're still healing on the inside and the outside. There's like 5 incisions that are healing. But it's, I'm like, I think it's going to be fine. And I think it'll actually be better once I'm fully healed. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. And you go through some things and you think, oh, I'll never get this back, or this will never feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it really is quite incredible what the body can do.
It
But,
is. Yeah.
you know, how long has
Yeah.
it been surgery at this point?
7 weeks, actually. Like tomorrow will be 7 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to see that you're on the mend with that. I wanted to talk a little bit about your pole journey and where you came from as a performer, because I believe that you had been performing since you were young, but kind of in a different facet, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've been in music and dance since I was a little kid. I actually went to school for violin. So I have 2 degrees in violin. And then I bought a Groupon for pole dancing after I finished my master's, and the rest is history. I started in 2011. Yeah, 2011 was when I started pole dancing. So now I'm starting to feel like a pole grandma. you know, yeah. Um, yeah, I think that I've kind of been reflecting on this a lot because I feel like as a pole dancer, you go through all these different phases where you're new and you have this huge growth, right? Everything that you take in is like, it's new, it's exciting. There's all these tricks. You have so much to learn. And then you kind of like, I fell into like the competition path, right? So it's like, all right, I'm going to like achieve, a high level of physical aptitude, performing. And also I think there weren't a lot of venues or opportunities for performance for pole 10 years ago. It really was just competition, or if somebody puts on a showcase. So, reflecting on that, I love that time period, and I'm so glad I'm not doing that anymore. you know, like
I feel the same.
yeah, I just like, it's amazing what we were able to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was
Yeah.
one, it brought us all to meet each other. And
Mm-hmm.
like, it wasn't really, what was it? It was 2012 when you and I shared a stage together, I believe, right? Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
that around that
Yeah.
time, yeah, performance situations. So really, if you wanted to create something or make something or share something or have something that you wanted to put out there, the comp stage was really the only place to do it. And now it's so different,
Mm-hmm.
many opportunities you can perform and create, routines just for outside of the competition stage. So it's neat.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there's sometimes like my students, they have this impression, like if they come to me for coaching, they're like, oh, you've won so many competitions. I was like, actually, I only won like, I think 1 or 2 out of like 14. I was like, I just did it a lot. So I'm not, like a winner in terms of that. But for me, like doing the competitions over and over, it really became about the process of creation. It was like, I like this process of creation. I want to create a piece. I want to put together what I've been working on and showcasing. And it's like, okay, it happens to have to be in a competition setting. So I really fell in love with the process of it. And I think I'm very fortunate now in New York that there are, there's some good venues and some good spaces to be able to create. One thing too, like, I will say opportunities came up before the pandemic and more now after the pandemic is, calmed down a little bit, to be able to collaborate with others. And that's something like pole is a very solitary apparatus so many of the times. And I found such great joy, like being able to choreograph with someone. I was like, oh, this is great. This is so much fun. It's such a different aspect to pole than I had. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like also back then in, like kind of 2011, 12, 13 era, I mean, it was about that creative process about, ooh, I want to tell this story. I want to put this together. I want to put together the things that I've been working on. And also for me, it was a lot like, well, these are my friends and that I hang out with. This is what they do because we're all hanging out. They're all competing. So let's compete together.
Yeah.
The fact that it's like, oh, you got, your pole jam buddies and your friends are competing. I guess this is something fun that we can do. And that was, it was, so much of it for me was also the social aspect. I knew
Yeah.
that to the studio to rehearse my routine also meant that I was going to see my friends.
Yes. Yeah. The aspect of community is so amazing about pole. Like I didn't realize how much I would love having that in my life. Is just like pole people are so cool, you know? And just this like shared love of this big metal stick. I mean, it's so silly, but it's so great. And just the people that I've met and the community that's been created and the friendships, that to me, it's like, it's so beautiful about pole. I love it, Yeah.
Yeah. I've been teaching at Body and Pole in New York City for many years now. How long has it been since you started teaching there?
I think it's been 10 years because I think I was there in 2013. I just realized that the other day. I was like, oh, 10 years. I'm not officially on the schedule anymore. I kind of transitioned out during the pandemic as I opened my bodywork practice for structural integration.
Yeah.
So the way I like to teach now, which really feels good to me. I mean, I was teaching a lot before the pandemic hit. It was, 10 classes a week and privates. And then I was also doing some performing. So it was a pretty intensive schedule. And now I love this ability to work one-on-one with my SI clients, my structural integration clients, and then be able to come into Body and Pole and teach like, just for 2 weeks, a set of classes. I'm able to bring full energy. I mean, something I realized is like, oh yeah, it was just, I mean, I think it's something that I did because I was in my 20s and, it was like sustainable at that point in time. But where I am now in my life, I love being able to bring full energy to classes and not have it be this like job. It's like less a job, yeah, of course this is what we're doing. I'm getting paid for my time and I'm sharing knowledge. But I really love that I can bring like so much fresh enthusiasm because I'm not teaching all the time. I think it's a better experience for the students too.
Yeah. That's nice to have the energy that it's also, it's nice to be able to go in and teach exactly what you are excited about teaching at the current moment. I always tell my teachers, what's really turning you on right now? Let's have you teach that,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do love teaching so much though. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like I go in and I'm like, this is so great, just like having that experience of like facilitating change for people in their bodies. I kind of like went through this journey about what's my role in the world, like what do I do, and I was like, okay, I'm like a movement educator. That's what I've been doing for a long time now. And I was like, it's not really like education. I'm not like, I mean, yeah, I'm teaching people stuff, but it's like I really love this idea of facilitating where it's like you're just revealing what people like can know about themselves. Like I can't tell you how to pole dance. I can facilitate your own process of self-inquiry to figure out what you need to do for your body, to make it work. So.
Wow, that's so beautifully put. I just need to like snapshot that moment and that description of that. That was so awesome. I will moment of this interview. That was fantastically put. So I know that you, through your pole journey, you really got into flexibility and mobility and really took off into that facet. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm just like so fascinated by how the body works. I mean, just the idea of this, machine, right? But really it's this like living, breathing organism. We have all these different parts and they're so interrelated. So I think that was sort of the gateway to, you know, finding my way to structural integration, because I just became really intrigued by balance in the body and the ability to train the body to do something. You know, if you think about like going to the gym, you can do bicep curls and you can make your arm very good at bending and straightening and strengthen those muscles. And then I was like, oh, I can do this with flexibility. I can get really strong at moving my joints in this other direction, you know, spinal extension, back bending. You can train those muscles to support that joint action. And for me, this made a lot of sense. And it felt really good in my body when I started, you know, I had a lot of like back pain and discomfort when I first started training flexibility because, you know, I often didn't get the right cue for my body, you know, great teachers, great information, but I was, you know how it is when somebody says that one thing that makes sense for you, you know, it's like back bending, you know, I would hear, use your abs. And I was like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to use my abs. That's for spinal flexion. And then I was like, you know, finally I had this epiphany. I was like, oh, the transverse abdominals, the deep abs, these corset muscles, that's what everyone's talking about with supporting the spine. So it kind of like sparked this journey of like, how strong can I be in increasing my mobility? And that's been a really fun journey for myself. And I love kind of seeing people approach it from that perspective, because I deal mostly with adult students, right? So, you know, we're not in a place where we can afford to take risks with our ligaments and with our joints. And so I believe that this has been like a really good approach to flexibility. Yeah, and that also, you know, I also realized that in working with folks one-on-one, I had a lot of like private flexibility students, that there was also limitations based on the patterns that were being held by the fascia in their body, that beautiful like web that records movement patterns. And that also kind of led me to like, I can also do hands-on work and make change that can really expedite this process of increasing range of motion. So it's kind of just been an interesting journey of like knowing about how to optimize movement.
Wow, your clients are so lucky to have someone who's so movement educated, to, like you're saying, take it from facilitating their journeys in mobility and flexibility to now all of a sudden having the knowledge to actually manipulate tissue. So, wow, it was in New York.
It's fun stuff. I just love nerding out about the body. And it's like, you know, it's hard now when I teach. I have to keep reminding myself, and, you know, when I teach a flex class, I taught one the other day, I was like, okay, don't go down a rabbit hole. Cause like, you know, again, keep it, you know, what's accessible, you know, repeating information. This information is like, you can get really specific with anatomical knowledge and names of things, but really it's just like this muscle here makes these bones move closer together or further apart. And so make this muscle stronger. And that like zoom out approach, I think, works really well to help people get curious about their bodies.
Oh, wow. That is so neat. So, do you have a lot of structural integration clients who are coming to you now that have movement backgrounds, that have worked with you as polars and as in your flex classes and such?
Yeah, I have a lot of folks that I'm pulling from the pole community are coming to see me. I actually have a pretty balanced client base of, you know, polars and non-polars. I love working with polars because I'm like, oh, I know what I know what's going on there. Like, yeah, definitely. Let's talk about this. And it's fun because if I do know them from that community, we can kind of build out a little more specific program of like, what's going to help you for longevity and sustainability in what we do on the pole. It's the pole is beautiful. It's great. And it has its own little like things about it that can be really hard on our bodies long-term. So I love that opportunity to work with pole dancers.
That's so neat. Okay. So to close, I know that there's so many people and polars out there who are interested in getting started or at the beginning of their flex journey, their mobility journey. What would be a couple of words of advice you would give?
Yeah, I think, like questions that I get asked are like, how long does it take me to get the splits? And how often should I train flexibility? And the thing I just always encourage folks to think about is, what are you doing the 22 hours a day when you're not in flex class, right? Like, what's going on in your life the rest of the time? If you want to become a more mobile and flexible person, it's really about changing lifestyle. You know, what are the habits in your life that are limiting your mobility or training your body to be less mobile? And that could be anything from like footwear choices to, you know, seating choices, all sorts of things. Building in more movement breaks, all of that can be really helpful. And then I think too, with flexibility, you know, sometimes folks say to me, they're like, oh, it's so easy for you. I'm like, no, it's not easy. Actually, you just reset the goalpost. You know, there's no destination of like, aha, I did it, I'm flexible. It's a long journey. And the progress is very, like, very focused, right? So the amount of gain that you're going to see, you have to kind of give it a lot of time to be able to see those discernible, like, notes of progress. It's not a linear journey. So really it's about the practice of it. I think it's like building a practice of movement and building a practice of exploring your body and pushing just a little bit on, you know, the end ranges and the range of motion. So making it a practice.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you for those tips. Well, thank you for joining us today, Lara. I'm so excited to have you in the Busting Limiting Beliefs panel at the Beginner Pole Dancer Virtual Summit coming up. So we will see you then. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy your vacation and your healing time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sergia. I'll see you then.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.